In the vast wilderness of Idaho, a man and his loyal dog set out on a scouting trip, only to vanish without a trace. Despite extensive searches, no sign of them was found. Then, 10 years later, a shocking discovery reignites the mystery. What happened to Todd Hofflander and his black Labrador, Ruby? Was it a tragic accident, foul play, or something even more inexplicable? Join us as we delve into the twists and turns of this haunting case, uncovering new evidence, exploring psychic predictions, and asking the hard questions that still remain. This is a story of friendship, mystery, and a decade-long search for the truth. So buckle up, because this is a journey you don't want to miss. In the late summer of 2010, specifically on September 24th, Todd Hofflander, a man of 39 years old, along with his companion Jeff, set off on an adventure to the Seven Devils Wilderness, a rugged and untamed region in Idaho. Their mission was to survey the land in anticipation for the forthcoming deer season. Todd's loyal black Labrador retriever, Ruby, was also part of this expedition. Over the course of the weekend, the duo established a campsite in the wilderness and undertook exploratory hikes between Sheep's Creek Basin and McGaffrey Basin. On the morning of the 27th, while traversing the area known as McGaffey Cow Camp, Todd started to feel a sharp pain in his knee, a consequence of a strenuous hike. This led to a change in their original plan, with Todd and Ruby opting for a less challenging trail down the Snake River in the McGaffrey cabin, while Jeff continued his journey towards Sheep Creek before descending into the river. The revised plan was for Todd to rest at McGaffey cabin while Jeff arranged for a boat to pick him up at the Snake River. Jeff journeyed north along the ridge until he reached the Sheep's Creek and then made his way to the junction where Sheep's Creek meets the Snake River. There, he was able to flag down a passing jet boat and hitch a ride to Pittsburgh Landing. At Pittsburgh Landing, Jeff rendezvoused with his father Steve, and together they navigated down the river in Steve's jet boat. They reached McGaffey cabin later in that afternoon, but were taken back to find that Todd was missing. In a bid to find Todd, Jeff and Steve retraced the trail from the cabin. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to locate Todd. As night fell, they were forced to halt their search due to the enveloping darkness. They returned to McGaffey cabin and spent the night there, hoping to resume their search at first light. On the morning of September 28th, Jeff and Steve embarked on a boat search, scanning the area between McGaffey cabin and Sheep Creek. They meticulously surveyed the shoreline, hoping to catch a glimpse of Todd in case he had emerged from one of the other drainages that fed into the Snake River. Their search continued until noon, when they decided to return to Riggins and seek additional help from the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office promptly launched a search and rescue operation that very afternoon. A helicopter was dispatched to survey the creeks and drainages where Todd was suspected to be. Additionally, 3 more search teams, equipped with horses and mules, were assembled and ready for deployment to the Windy Saddle area at dawn the next day. The U.S. Air Force was also contacted to conduct an aerial survey of the area using flare technology to cover as much ground as possible. The initial search reports highlighted the extreme ruggedness of the Seven Devils Wilderness, with elevations varying from 1,275 feet at the Snake River to 7,600 feet at the Windy Saddle Trailhead. The terrain was described as exceedingly steep, featuring cliffs along the riverfront, with precipitous drops of up to 1,800 feet. The vegetation in the area was diverse, ranging from dense brush and a thick canopy at the river level to steep and rocky ledges at higher elevations. The weather was relatively moderate for that time of year, with nighttime lows in the 50s and daytime highs reaching the mid-80s. Despite the presence of numerous hiking trails in the vicinity, the foot traffic was minimal during the transitional period between the end of the summer and the beginning of the deer season. On the morning of the 29th, search teams began their initial search from the Windy Saddle Trailhead, moving towards the McGaffey Basin. The area between McGaffey Basin and Sheep Creek was also meticulously scanned, with the aid of flare technology. In the afternoon, a dog team joined the search, using scent articles belonging to Todd to track his possible trail. The dog team, equipped with a handheld thermographic device, continued their search throughout the night. Simultaneously, Todd's companions, Steve and Jeff, persisted in their river search using their boat. Despite the exhaustive efforts of all the search teams, no trace of Todd was found. On October 6th, a man named Tom Lindsay approached the sheriff's deputies, claiming to have had contact with the sheriff's office during the search. Mr. Lindsay asserted that his dowsing rods had indicated that Todd was near Bernard Creek, a creek that runs parallel to the trail Todd was expected to be on. According to Mr. Lindsay, Todd would be found in the first draw on the right when looking up at Bernard Creek from the Snake River. He also stated that Todd was still alive. However, it appears that deputies did not attach much significance to this lead, leaving the mystery of Todd's whereabouts unsolved. On the 8th of October, the sheriff's office was alerted to a grim discovery. A dog's carcass was found floating in the Snakes River the previous Saturday. The dog had been skinned, and although photographs were taken by the person who reported the find, it was unclear if the dog was Ruby, Todd's faithful companion. On October 9th, Jeff was brought into the Riggins Sheriff's Office for an interview and a polygraph test. The objective of this session was to piece together a timeline of events leading up to Todd's disappearance. Jeff had taken photos during their scouting trip, which served as proof that Todd was alive and well in the days before he vanished. In an interview, Jeff was subject to a polygraph test. Following the test, a discussion ensued between deputies, the examiner, and Jeff regarding the results. It appeared that Jeff had failed the test, indicating possible deception. Jeff was questioned about any undisclosed information that might have influenced the test results. Despite this, Jeff insisted he was being truthful. Jeff suggested that the polygraph machine might be faulty and asserted that the photos on his camera would corroborate his story. During the interrogation, Jeff revealed new information, including the fact that Todd was carrying a custom .44 Magnum revolver in a shoulder holster. The revolver had been a possession of Todd's late father, a former member of the California Highway Patrol. Jeff stated that Todd had the gun with him when they parted ways, and he categorically denied any involvement in Todd's disappearance, asserting that he did not harm Todd or cover up or do any wrongdoing. In the middle of the interview, Jeff's father abruptly entered the room and demanded that Jeff leave, effectively ending the interview. On October 13th, a comprehensive interview was conducted with Todd's wife, Julie. While the interview shed light on many aspects of Todd's life, it revealed little about the circumstances of his disappearance. However, some intriguing statements were made about Todd's relationship with Steve and Jeff. Julie mentioned that Todd would sometimes feel hurt by Steve and Jeff, who would invite him on fishing trips only to cancel or change the plans at the last minute. They would also call Todd unexpectedly and describe the enjoyable trip that they were having, even though he wasn't invited. Julie also alleged that Jeff occasionally made her feel uneasy with his gaze. Moreover, she stated that Jeff viewed dogs as mere tools and would sometimes mistreat his own dog. If these allegations were true, they would cast a negative light on Jeff's character. On October 15th, a group of hikers who were driving along Seven Devils Road stopped for lunch near mile marker 15. During their meal, they noticed a black Labrador retriever descending a hill, appearing restless and making whining and growling noises. Aware of Todd's disappearance and his black Labrador companion, the hikers tried to lure the dog closer with food. They noticed that the dog seemed excited when they mentioned the name Ruby or Todd. Believing that they might have found Todd's dog, they spent some time calling Todd's name and searching the area, but to no avail. They then contacted the sheriff's office to report their discovery and drove the dog into Riggins to meet with the deputies. Sheriff's deputies examined the black Labrador and observed that the dog appeared to be in good health, with a shiny coat and no visible injuries. Interestingly, the dog was not wearing a collar or a pack, which was unusual since Ruby had been wearing a collar and a blue doggy pack when Todd and the dog disappeared. Julie Hofflander had been informed and was waiting nearby with her 2 children to identify the dog. When deputies brought the dog close to the family, they started calling Ruby's name. The dog immediately ran straight to them, confirming that the Labrador Retriever was indeed Ruby, alive and well. Hoping that Ruby would lead them to Todd, search teams took her back to the location where she was found the next day. However, their efforts were in vain. On October 19th, deputies met with Todd's wife Julie and informed her about where Ruby had been discovered. They discussed plans for possibly searching the following 2 days to cover that specific area. Julie requested that deputies speak to a psychic detective from California, whom she had paid $500 for information. The deputies then had a conversation with this psychic, who claimed that Todd harbored significant inner anger and owed a substantial debt. According to her, Jeff mistakenly shot and killed Todd while hunting, and Jeff subsequently buried him. The psychic detective also stated that she had used dowsing on the map to determine the burial site, pinpointing the area around the Indian Trail Ridge. The search for Todd continued intermittently for a total of 18 days. During this time, searchers covered nearly every possible area within the vicinity of Todd's disappearance. On certain days, up to 7 dog teams were simultaneously involved in the search, with some teams persisting until the dogs were physically unable to continue. However, despite the exhaustive efforts and the involvement of numerous searchers, the search yielded no significant clues indicating Todd's whereabouts. On the 15th of October, the only tangible lead related to Todd's disappearance surfaced. His dog was found, despite the area where the dog was discovered having been thoroughly searched by both human and canine teams, and having been flown over multiple times by aircraft. No further evidence was unearthed. The extensive search operation garnered considerable public attention, with numerous hunters volunteering their assistance. However, with the onset of unfavorable weather conditions, the search operation was reluctantly called off on October 21st. At this juncture, no significant leads had emerged regarding Todd's whereabouts. Nearly a decade would elapse before any new development surfaced in Todd's case. Fast forward to April 27, 2020. A hunter in the Bernard Creek area stumbled upon what seemed to be human remains, along with backpacking gear and a camera. The hunter retrieved the camera and delivered it to the Idaho County Sheriff's Office for examination. Upon inspecting the SD card of the camera, the sheriff discovered pictures of Todd. Consequently, a team of deputies was transported by boat to the area to recover the remains. They found the bones and gear approximately 200 foot away, on the opposite side of the Bernard Creek from the trail that Todd had been expected to follow. Deputies noted that the backpack and other items matched the description of those known to be carried by Todd. However, only a partial skeleton was recovered. The remains discovered included fragments of the cranium, ribs, scapula, and part of the humerus. The area where they were found is heavily blanketed in brush, making it challenging to set up camp or be spotted by helicopters from above. Video footage and photographs taken by the Idaho County Sheriff's deputies provide a vivid depiction of the location and conditions of the items. Deputies conducted thorough searches in all directions for additional clues, but found nothing of significance. Notably absent from the site were Todd's boots and firearm, which would be highly unlikely to completely decay over the previous 10 years. Although pictures were retrieved from the camera's SD card, none of them depicted Todd on the hunting trip because the card had already reached its storage capacity. Todd's wife confirmed that the assorted items belonged to him when they were shown to her. The coroner eventually used comparative DNA analysis on the bone fragments to confirm they belonged to Todd. However, an official ruling on the cause of death remains elusive due to lack of evidence, making the exact circumstances of Todd Hofflander's disappearance and death a complete mystery. The case stands out due to the presence of clues pointing out in various directions, similar to other cases involving hunters like Heron Hedges. The information regarding Todd's movement prior to his disappearance heavily relies on the account provided by his hunting companion, Jeff. While Jeff assisted in the search for Todd, his credibility came into question, given the description of his relationship with Todd provided by his wife, Julie, which does not resemble a friendship. Jeff's failure in the polygraph test can also be viewed with suspicion depending on one's belief in the accuracy of these tests. The search for Todd Hofflander appears to have been extensive, with logs confirming aerial coverage of Bernard Creek using helicopters. However, the thick canopy would have hindered Todd from being spotted if he was present there. FLIR technology should have had a good chance of detecting him if he was still alive and emitting heat. Ground search maps indicated that portions of Bernard Creek were covered, but not the specific area where Todd was eventually found. Despite numerous dogs teams involved in the search, they did not pick up on Todd's location. While search dogs vary in effectiveness, it is surprising that none of the trained teams detected his presence, considering that some were trained to detect both live and deceased scents. Regarding psychic predictions in missing person cases, there are two notable instances in this case. The psychic detective hired by Todd's wife, Julie, claimed that Todd was accidentally killed and buried in the area of Indian Trail Ridge, which is not near the location where Todd's remains were actually found. The other individual, who was not specifically referred to as a psychic but employed dowsing rods, stated that Todd would be found in the first draw to the right when looking up Bernard Creek from the Snake River section, called PB38. Interestingly, this prediction aligns more closely with Todd's actual discovery site, located at the bottom of Section 21, practically on the boundary of what is Section PB38. It could be argued that since the Drowser believed Todd was alive, his remains might have slightly downstream from the initial location. The interpretation of these predictions as mere chance or something more is left to your individual judgment. What do you think happened? Leave it in the comments below. Regardless of the circumstances, it is unfortunate that the lead regarding the psychic prediction was not thoroughly investigated by the sheriff's office. There is no indication in the available reports that this lead was acted upon. The discovery location of Todd's remains only deepens the mystery surrounding his disappearance. Why was he found 200 feet away from the trail on the opposite side of the Bernard Creek? Did Todd's knee worsen, forcing him to set up camp near a water source? If he was still alive when the search began a day later, why didn't he not return to the trail or hear the search parties looking for him? Remarkably, Todd's clothing and gear were in relatively good condition, even after being discovered 10 years later. There are no signs of animal attacks on the clothing, ruling out predation. Todd's holster was found among his belongings, but the fate of his revolver remains unknown. The only missing items were the revolver and his boots. What happened to these items? It is understandable that many may consider the possibility of foul play in this case, which is a valid theory. Others may contemplate paranormal possibilities, which cannot be entirely dismissed. The discovery of Todd after 10 years likely provided some closure to his family, but it also left behind a lingering mystery. Like many other missing person cases, this one raises more questions than answers. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, and you enjoy me telling you these mysterious stories, please consider subscribing, sharing, and hitting that notification bell. It really helps the channel out. Nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, the Great Smoky Mountain National Park is a treasure trove of natural beauty and mystery. It's the most visited national park in the United States, and within its vast expanse lies the Cades Cove. This picturesque destination, favored by those with a taste for the intriguing, is a popular hike for both locals and tourists who appreciate the allure of the unknown. The cove is a labyrinth of lush foliage with an 11-mile loop road that snakes through the landscape. It's a journey that offers more than just scenic beauty. It's a chance to glimpse the park's diverse wildlife, a thrilling prospect for those who relish the thrill of the unexpected. The area is also dotted with historic structures, each with its own tale to tell, and the seasonal scenery provides a stunning backdrop, particularly in the spring and in the fall. For those who wish to delve deeper into the mysteries of the park, the Cades Cove Campground offers the perfect base. With numerous hiking and biking trails, it's an opportunity to immerse yourself in the park's unparalleled beauty. Cades Cove is a magnet for those intrigued by wildlife. Whether you prefer to drive through or camp, the cove offers ample opportunities to observe a variety of creatures, from commonly sighted deer and black bears to the more elusive coyotes, groundhogs, turkeys, and raccoons. For many, including the Martin family from Knoxville, Tennessee, Cades Cove holds a special place in their hearts. For generations, they've made an annual trip to the Smokies on Father's Day weekend, specifically to camp and hike in the Cades Cove. Their love for this beautiful area and unique experience it offers continues to draw them back year after year, each visit uncovering new adventures. One such adventure began on June 13, 1969, when William Martin, his two sons, Douglas and Dennis, and his father, Clyde, embarked on a Father's Day weekend adventure. This was Dennis's first such adventure with his father, and the group planned to hike the 13-mile loop trail from Russell to Spence Field in the Cades Cove. Both William and Clyde were experienced hikers, familiar with the trail's terrain and its hidden surprises. Even Douglas, at just 9 years old, had hiked the trail before and was familiar with it. At the age of 6, Dennis was no stranger to family hikes. He was able to match the group's pace as they embarked on their journey from Cades Cove. Their path led them through the serene Abrams Creek and past the junction of the Cribgraph Trail. As they pressed on, they reached Russell Field, a place that could soak in the awe-inspiring scenery and relish in the wilderness. On the evening of June 13th, upon their arrival at Russell Field, the Martin family rendezvoused with Dr. Carter Martin, a family friend from Huntsville, Alabama, and his two sons. Despite the shared surname, there was no blood relation between the two Martin families. The following morning, June 14th, the group embarked on a 90-minute hike along the Appalachian Trail toward Spence Field, a location famed for its breathtaking view of the mountain laurel in full blossom during June. Upon reaching Spence Field, they were welcomed by other family members who had also made the trek. After a leisurely late lunch, the Martin children and Dr. Martin's children began to play. During this time, Dennis's father, William, overheard the boys conspiring. They were plotting a playful scheme to run on the edge of the field and sneak around, and then surprise the adults. To ensure the success of their plan, they instructed Dennis, who was wearing a bright red t-shirt, to walk alone so as to not give away their surprise. William watched the boys, amused by their laughter and camaraderie as they planned the surprise attack. Post-lunch, Douglas Martin teamed up with Dr. Martin's son and set off in one direction, while Dennis, still in his bright red t-shirt, ventured off alone in another direction. William, Dennis's father, watched his son walk away for a few minutes before turning his attention back to the rest of the group. When the children sprang their surprise on the adults a few minutes later, it took a moment for anyone to notice that Dennis was not among them. William had assumed that Dennis would eventually join the others and was not immediately concerned. However, it took less than 5 minutes for a sense of unease to creep in as William realized that Dennis was not with the group. Family dispersed, their voices echoing through the wilderness as they called out for Dennis, but their calls were met with silence. A sense of panic began to grip William as he and the others combed the area. Despite their frantic search, they found no trace of the young boy. William Martin was particularly distressed, as Dennis was a reserve child who always responded when his name was called. In a desperate bid to find his son, William decided to head in one direction, while his father, Clyde, went in the opposite direction. William traced the nearby Appalachian Trail, heading west and calling out for Dennis as he went. He traversed a mile before turning back towards Russell Field, then retraced his steps all the way back to Spence Field, thinking that Dennis might have gotten disoriented and followed the path they had taken earlier in the day. Despite his exhaustive efforts, there was still no sign of Dennis. A defeated and exhausted William returned to Spence Field alone. This was 1969, a time before cell phones or quick means to call for help. Clyde, Dennis's grandfather, realized they needed assistance and decided to hike to the nearest ranger station at Cades Cove, a daunting 9 miles away. It took Clyde several hours to reach the ranger station, and by the time he arrived, it was already 8:30 p.m. He reported Dennis missing, and the rangers immediately initiated a search and rescue operation. As the search for Dennis commenced, a storm rolled in, adding another layer of complexity to the already challenging task of finding the young boy. The area where Dennis was last seen was known for its intricate terrain and potentially dangerous wildlife. The heavy rain further escalated the daunting situation. Despite the challenges, a few rangers immediately began searching the immense area around Spence Field, where Dennis had last been seen. They informed dispatch that they planned to search through the night in hopes of finding the missing boy. In 1969, there was no established large-scale search and rescue operation plans in place for the Smoky Mountain National Park. Chief Ranger Sneeden organized a search crew and set up a headquarters camp at Spence Field, where they strategized their efforts to locate Dennis. The search for Dennis Martin commenced on the morning of June 15th, with the crew hopeful of making headway in their mission of finding the missing boy. Initially, the search party was composed of 30 men, including 5 leaders and 10 additional crews of 2 to 4 men each. However, as the search progressed, more volunteers flocked to the site to lend their support. By 1 p.m. on June 15th, the search party had swelled to 240 people. But there was a glaring lack of leadership and coordination among them. As the days passed, the search for Dennis attracted an increasing number of participants, including Boy Scouts and rescue squads from North Carolina. They brought in jeeps, trucks, and helicopters to aid in the search effort. Eventually, the search party will comprise more than 1,400 people. The sheer number of search teams and volunteers may have inadvertently impeded the search. There was no established search and rescue operation plan for the park at this time, and the search lacked a clear chain of command. Consequently, searchers were more likely obliterating evidence or any clues that could lead them to Dennis Martin. Despite the number of people involved in the search, Dennis remained missing. As the search for Dennis Martin continued, a myriad of ideas and theories were proposed about his possible fate. Some of these came from psychics and fortune tellers who reached out to the authorities offering assistance. One psychic from Los Angeles claimed to have seen the boy 2.5 miles to the left of where he had last been seen by his father or brother. According to this psychic, Dennis had fallen off a steep area and was now ensnared in the bushes, but still alive. Another psychic from New Orleans suggested that the search should shift from the ground to the trees and the tree tops to find Dennis. These were just a couple examples of the dozens of calls that the search team received from psychics who claimed they had information that could lead to Dennis. Despite the search leaders following up on every call, they all turned out to be dead ends. After a week of unsuccessful searching, the FBI was called in to investigate whether there was any indication of foul play or a potential kidnapping. The FBI only gets involved in a missing person case if there is a suspicion of a crime. FBI agent Jim Wright was assigned to delve into the background of the Martin family to see if anyone could have had a motive to harm or abduct young Dennis. After an exhaustive investigation, the FBI found no evidence of any adversaries or suspicious individuals linked to the Martins. The absence of any concrete leads led the FBI and the Martins to redirect their search efforts back to the Smoky Mountains. The Martin family cooperated fully with the authorities, trying to recall every detail from their arrival at the Great Smoky Mountain National Park until the last moment when William saw Dennis walking away from the group. They recounted everything that had transpired during the initial search for Dennis in the hours before Clyde Martin reached the ranger station. Dennis went missing around 4 p.m., and it took Clyde until 8:30 p.m. to reach the station, leaving a 4.5-hour window. The family searched the immediate area and enlisted the help of anyone around Spence Field who offered to assist. The FBI interviewed friends, family, and acquaintances, but found no enemies or suspicious individuals connected to the family. Thus, they returned to the Smokies to continue the search for Dennis. The Martins raised some red flags and alerted authorities to investigate potential leads. One such lead was an unnamed man from Dandridge, Tennessee, who had been camping at Spence Field around the time of Dennis's disappearance. William Martin, Dennis's father, reported to park rangers that this man, referred to as Mr. Cooper, seemed to stay close to William during most of the search efforts. Adding to the mystery was an unknown woman claiming to have extrasensory perception. She contacted the police department and requested to speak with Dennis's mother. After speaking with the woman, Miss Martin was advised to be cautious of Mr. Cooper from Dandridge. Concerned that the woman and Mr. Cooper might be collaborating to abduct Dennis, Miss Martin shared this possibility with the police. Despite the potential lead, there is no public record indicating that the authorities found the situation suspicious enough to launch a further investigation. Nevertheless, the Martins noted these strange occurrences and felt they warranted attention. As the search for their missing son Dennis continued, the Martins grew increasingly desperate for any explanation that could help offer hope for his safe return. They considered every possible scenario that could have led to Dennis's disappearance, including the idea that someone may have confused their family with another. However, there is no publicly available evidence to suggest that this theory held any weight. Contained within the publicly available files related to the investigation into Dennis's disappearance are several intriguing leads and witness statements. Among these is the account of a man named Harold Key from Carthage, Tennessee. Harold and his family were in the park on the day Dennis went missing. They were in the Sea Branch area, located roughly 7 miles from Spence Field, near Rowan's Creek. According to Key, he heard a disturbing scream that afternoon, which prompted him and his wife to scan their surroundings, fearing that one of their children might be under attack by a bear. Shortly thereafter, Key spotted a suspicious-looking man moving swiftly through the nearby woods. He recalled that the man appeared to be intentionally avoiding them, and described the man as rough in appearance. Several days after Harold Key and his family were in the park, they returned home and learned of Dennis Martin's disappearance through news reports. He immediately reported his account of the sickening scream and rough-looking man to park officials. However, after investigating the matter, park officials determined that Rowan's Creek was too far from Spence Field for the incidents to be related. The search for Dennis persisted for 7 grueling days, and on June 20th, Dennis's 7th birthday, park ranger records show plans were being made for the grim possibility of not finding him alive. With over 1,400 volunteers participating in the search, concerns arose that uncoordinated efforts could be causing more harm than good. As a result, park officials requested volunteers cease joining the search, which had then covered over 56 square miles. As the search for Dennis Martin continued, the costs mounted. Despite the massive efforts from volunteers and law enforcement, the hope of finding Dennis alive began to wane. On Wednesday, June 25th, park officials announced that the search for Dennis Martin would soon be concluding. For the Martin family, the news was crushing. After nearly 2 weeks of camping out and searching tirelessly for their son, they had to pack up and return to Knoxville with heavy hearts. The uncertainty surrounding Dennis's disappearance and the lack of answers only compounded their anguish. As the search for Dennis Martin dragged on without any solid leads, the National Park Rangers made the difficult decision to suspend all major search operations on Sunday, June 29th. Despite their best efforts, they had come up empty-handed, and the FBI had found no evidence to support theories of Dennis being kidnapped. In the weeks that followed, the Martin family clung to hope for any information that could lead to their son's safe return. They offered a reward of $5,000, equivalent to about $40,000 today, for anyone who could provide credible information about Dennis's whereabouts. However, as time passed and the search efforts yielded nothing new, park officials had to make the tough call to officially close the search for Dennis Martin on September 11, 1969. The Martin family was left with no answers and the haunting memory of their son's disappearance in the Great Smoky Mountains. The disappearance of Dennis Martin has remained a mystery for over half a century, with no definitive answers as to what happened to the young boy. Various theories have been proposed, including the possibility that he became lost in the rugged terrain and perished due to the elements or an attack by wildlife. Over the years, several tips and leads have emerged. One notable tip came in 1985, when a group of illegal ginseng hunters stumbled upon what appeared to be the remains of a small boy in an area about 3 miles from Spence Field. The hunters found a skull and other remains, but fearing arrest, almost 2 decades passed before one of the men called in the tip. With a search team finally looking for the remains, they came up empty-handed, as too much time had passed. According to a report by park officials, the search for Dennis was a marked failure. Despite the presence of many people on the scene, any possible evidence that could have been preserved was likely trampled upon by the numerous individuals who came to offer their assistance. The failure to properly coordinate and organize the search for Dennis Martin prompted the National Park Service to completely overhaul their search and rescue operations across all national parks. As a result of these changes, agencies all over the United States and the world have also adopted these new protocols, which ultimately have resulted in saving lives. Despite the positive outcomes of these changes, it is heart-wrenching to know that they came too late to rescue Dennis Martin. His disappearance remains an unsolved mystery, and his tragic case has served as a catalyst for reforming search and rescue procedures across the country and across the world. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. Welcome back to a universe of mystery, where we delve into the most intriguing mysteries surrounding disappearances in our national parks. Today, we're uncovering the chilling story of Kenny Veach, an experienced hiker who vanished while searching for the enigmatic M Cave in the Nevada desert. What happened to Kenny, and what secrets does the M Cave hold? Stay tuned to find out. But before we start unraveling this eerie tale, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Now, let's begin. Kenny Veach was a seasoned adventurer, always eager to explore uncharted wilderness. In October 2014, he posted a comment on YouTube claiming to have discovered a mysterious cave shaped like the letter M near Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. According to Kenny, upon approaching the cave, he felt an unusual vibration that caused his body to tremble, and a sense of fear overtook him. Intrigued by this experience, he vowed to return and investigate further.
This ain't nothing. I am a long-distance hiker. One time during one of my hikes up by Nellis Air Force Base, I found a hidden cave. The entrance to the cave was shaped like a perfect capital M. I always enter every cave I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my whole body began to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly, I became very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things that ever happened to me.
Determined to uncover the truth behind the M Cave, Kenny embarked on a solo hiking expedition in 2014, armed with his camera to document the journey. He uploaded a video on his YouTube channel detailing his search, but ultimately returned empty-handed. Undeterred, Kenny announced his plans to venture back into the desert to locate this mysterious cave once again. Unfortunately, this would be the last time his friends and family would ever hear from him. The following is excerpts from the actual video that Kenny posted while he was exploring for the cave.
Well, here I am on my hike up here in the mountains north of Las Vegas. This is a canyon I just walked up in. Now you can't tell, but my truck is way out there by the mountains at the very end of this valley. It's kind of like a big canyon. On the other side of these mountains, I'll show you in a second, is the bombing range, the Nellis Air Force bombing range. They do a lot of practice stuff out there. This is an old mine, and there's a hole here that just goes way down. My mission today is to just do a one-day hike. It's about a 10-hour hike. I got to still go over another ridge and then go all the way down a big crevice. It's real narrow and gets kind of scary. I'm looking for a cave that I found, and I didn't have a sidearm when I was here before, and something about that cave just spooked me. Out of all the caves I've ever gone in, this one just made my body vibrate. The closer I got to it, the crazier my body felt, and I was like, all right, I'm not gonna go in there right now, but I'm coming back someday. And I talked to some people on YouTube, and I told them, hey, I'm coming out here, you know, because they kind of called my hand on it. So I don't know if there's going to be anything to it, but it might be interesting. If I can find it, I got to relocate it, and this is a big mountain range I'm in, and I'm on foot. You know, my truck's way out there. There's no roads, there's no trails. It's a pretty rough terrain. So hopefully I'll find it. It's shaped like a big M. It's a big cave that looks just like a gigantic M. And it's about as tall as I am and kind of narrow, and it's stuck on the side of a mountain, so I hope I can find it again. And if I do, I'm going in there. I'm gonna put on my light and take my gun out and walk in there, see if I find anything. We'll see.
On November 10th, 2014, Kenny set out for his fateful expedition. After he failed to return, a search party was dispatched to comb the desert for any trace of the missing hiker. On November 22nd, his cell phone was found near an abandoned mine shaft, but there was no sign of Kenny. The search continued for weeks, but to no avail. Kenny Veach's disappearance has fueled various theories and speculations, including an accidental fall. Kenny might have fallen into the numerous mine shafts scattered throughout the area or encountered treacherous terrain, which led to a fatal accident. Exposure or dehydration. Kenny could have succumbed to the harsh desert conditions, such as extreme temperatures, lack of water, disorientation, ultimately leading to his demise. Foul play or abduction. Some speculate that Kenny may have encountered someone with ill intentions or stumbled upon a dangerous situation, such as drug runners or smugglers, that resulted in his disappearance. Another theory suggests that Kenny might have chosen to disappear and start a new life elsewhere, leaving no trace of him behind. Supernatural or unexplained phenomena. Some believe that the M Cave may hold dangerous secrets or be connected to paranormal events, which could have played a role in Kenny's disappearance. After all, he claimed the M Cave was located in the heart of UFO Valley, at the center of where everything happened in the Nevada desert. Where he was very close to Area 51 and also Nellis Air Force Base. These bases are often talked about by UFO theorists. Kenny Veach's tragic disappearance serves as a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurk within the vast wilderness of our national parks. While the enigmatic M Cave continues to elude discovery, Kenny's story lives on throughout his YouTube videos and the unwavering determination of those who continue to search for answers. What do you think happened to Kenny Veach? What secrets does the M Cave hold? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining us on this journey at a universe of mystery. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow mystery enthusiasts. Until next time, stay curious, safe, and prepared as we continue to unravel the world's most intriguing mysteries. Be sure to check out our other videos exploring unsolved disappearance and mysterious phenomena. If you have any suggestions for future videos or cases you'd like us to cover, please leave a comment below. We're always eager to hear from our viewers and learn about the mysteries that captivate your imagination. Welcome back to a universe of mystery. Today, we'll delve into the tragic and mysterious disappearance of Michael Paul Lemaitre, who went missing during the 2012 Mount Marathon race in Seward, Alaska. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more intriguing stories like this one. So let's dive in. Mount Marathon, located in Alaska, is well known for its annual race held on the 4th of July. This challenging 5K features a grueling climb and descent with an elevation gain of around 3,000 feet. The race is not for the faint of heart, and competitors must navigate steep, treacherous terrain. Originating in 1915, the Mount Marathon race has become a beloved tradition for both the local community and the adventurous runners worldwide. Each year, hundreds of participants flock to Seward, Alaska to test their limits and conquer the mountain. However, the race has also seen its fair share of accidents, injuries, and even a few fatalities. On July 4, 2012, a 65-year-old Michael Paul Lemaitre took part in this iconic race. He was a devoted husband, father, and grandfather, and an avid runner. Little did he know that this race would be his last. As the day unfolded, Lemaitre would vanish without a trace, leaving behind a heartbroken family and a community searching for answers. Paul Lemaitre was not an elite athlete, but he was passionate about running and eager to participate in this challenging event. Despite the inherent risks, he was determined to prove himself and conquer Mount Marathon. Lemaitre was last seen near the summit of Mount Marathon, lagging behind other racers. Although he was not as fast as some of his younger competitors, his determination was undeniable. When he failed to return after the race, his family and friends grew concerned. It wasn't long before search parties were dispatched to comb the mountain for any sign of him. The following is the actual search party featured on the hit TV show, Alaskan State Troopers.
I got called to search and rescue. A 66-year-old male went up over the top, last seen about 6 p.m. It's about 9:30 right now. This is this man's first time running this mountain. Got a helo on standby. We're going to have a spotter go up with him and see if they can find him.
We do have the last visual of him at the top of the mountain. These two cliff areas, this is a 300-foot drop right here, and this backside is vicious.
The troopers can't waste any time. In less than an hour away, the temperature will drop to around 40 degrees.
We got about 40 minutes or so of daylight. We're going to start pulling people off here pretty soon.
Okay.
All right? It's too dangerous for you guys to be up there at night.
Mount Marathon frequently attracts novice racers who fail to recognize the peril, a blunder that some may not have a chance to repeat. Troopers dispatch seasoned hiker David Lorraine to scale the mountain slopes.
I have knowledge of this mountain, and if we have any search and rescues on this mountain, I'm the one that's supposed to respond to it.
So that's where they wanted me to go.
The path that existed earlier today is transformed into a muddy torrent where a single misstep could result in a fatal plunge equivalent to a 30-story descent.
So they put this trail in to bypass these rocks here to come up, but as you can see, this trail is pretty slippery. People don't, they're just coming down fast and they slip on the slippery rocks, and next thing you know, it's a good little drop down to the bottom of the chute there.
Clearly, the higher you go, the colder it gets. Hypothermia, especially when you get damp and in these conditions in a rainforest type of environment, it can set in really fast.
A cry for help gets the troopers' attention, but it's a female voice.
You in the trees? Can you see me? I'm coming. Just stay there, don't move. You aren't cut up or anything? Okay. Pretty cold?
Yeah. Is there like down there, is there like anywhere I could go in?
Yeah, we'll get you help.
She had a pair of running pants on, they were ripped. I did see a little bit of blood. She was shivering, she was sopping wet. She was stuck.
Yeah, this is really bad right here.
Yeah.
Mm. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 2142. 42.
This was right on the bottom. I don't know if it could be a clue or something. It was right there at this last part.
Yeah.
That's not his?
I don't know.
Is it? Do we know where the family is?
One of them's in here.
In the back on the couch there.
Did you see what he was wearing this morning by chance?
I didn't.
Okay.
Where was that located at?
It was on the mountain, down low, but
Probably not.
As daylight fades, the ground searchers decide to suspend their efforts until morning. However, with Lemaitre at risk of succumbing to the freezing temperatures overnight, a final attempt is made to locate him using an aerial thermal camera.
The weather, the rain coming down, if they find this guy, they've got to offload the trooper in the dark. The temperature's down pretty low. With that thermal camera, we'll be able to spot him pretty quick. He's going to stick out like a sore thumb up there. Landing could mean a couple of different things. They could be having trouble with the helicopter, or they could have found the subject. They could be trying to get down to him. Okay, so no contact with him right now.
we are currently on the hillside. We're yelling, waiting for a response. We have no contact with anybody. We're just waiting to see if we are going to hear anything.
The helicopter searches throughout the night and into the next day and finds nothing.
It's been over 72 hours. During this time frame, I've probably received about 10 hours sleep. I'm gonna kind of go home and try to reprocess and reorganize things. It really teaches you to focus what's important in life, because none of us really know what the future holds. All we really have is the now.
Searchers comb the mountain day and night using helicopters, dogs, and ground teams in an effort to locate Lemaitre. They searched every possible trail and even ventured off the established paths, hoping to find any clues that might lead them to him. But as the days wore on and the search area expanded, the chances of finding him alive began to diminish. The search for Lemaitre was extensive, with authorities, volunteers, and family members scouring the mountain and its surrounding areas. Despite their efforts, no trace of him was ever found. The search was eventually called off, but his family continued their quest for answers, determined to uncover what happened to their beloved Paul. Over the years, various groups and individuals have returned to Mount Marathon to continue the search for Lemaitre. Some have even claimed to have found personal items that may have belonged to him, but to date, no definitive evidence has been uncovered. Lemaitre's disappearance not only left the family in mourning, but it also raised serious questions about the safety of the Mount Marathon race. In the wake of this tragedy, race organizers implemented improved communication systems and increased safety measures to ensure the well-being of future participants. They also established cutoff times for racers to reach specific checkpoints, providing a better way to monitor their progress and ensure that no one is left behind. Additionally, the race now requires participants to carry a personal tracking device, which allows organizers and emergency personnel to locate them in case of an accident or an emergency. These changes were made in the hope that no family would ever have to endure the same heartache that Paul Lemaitre's loved ones face. The disappearance of Michael Paul Lemaitre remains shrouded in mystery. Some speculate that he may have succumbed to the harsh Alaskan wilderness or perhaps encountered a wild animal. Others suggest that he may have become disoriented and wandered off the trail. Despite the many theories, there is still no concrete evidence as to what truly happened. Lemaitre's story has captured the attention of the public and the media, with many drawn to the unsolved mystery and the unwavering determination of his family to find the answers. Their continued search serves as a testament to their love for Paul and their desire for closure. As we remember Michael Paul Lemaitre and his family, we're reminded of the importance of staying safe and vigilant in the great outdoors. This tragic story serves as a cautionary tale for all adventurers. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. Please like, share, and subscribe to A Universe of Mystery for more captivating stories like this. Until next time, stay curious, safe, and keep exploring. In today's story, we will be discussing the mysterious disappearance of Gail Stewart, a 64-year-old Reno, Nevada woman who went missing on Valentine's Day, February 14th of 2022. Gail Stewart had been missing since 10 a.m. when her son could not get in touch with her and decided to call some friends to help locate the missing woman. One of her son's friends had a feeling that Stewart was in a certain area and decided to ascend a hiking trail in the Coughlin Range outside of Reno. Authorities described this area as a fairly common area for local hikers with numerous dirt roads to walk along. However, Stewart was discovered on the side of a steep slope, an area where hikers typically don't venture. It remains unclear how the 64-year-old ended up on the dangerous cliff, but it's believed she may have fallen down a slope before grabbing onto a tree and clinging to it. In a dramatic twist, a small search party of friends and family members found her roughly 300 to 400 feet from the road. A rescue team, which consisted of about 28 people, arrived at about 9:15 p.m. that evening and spent roughly 30 minutes pulling Stewart to safety. At the time of her rescue, Stewart was unresponsive and suffering from hypothermia. Officials also reported that she was missing a shoe and had sustainable considerable trauma to her legs, although they did not elaborate on the extent of her injuries. Fire Chief Seth Williams of the Reno Fire Department referred to Stewart's rescue as a miracle story, and he shared that the son had called up some friends to help search for her, and one of them decided to head off the cliff, thinking she might have fallen down there. It was then that they found her clinging to a tree. The last thing she said before falling silent was, "Help."
We, for a small department, run roughly 50,000 calls a year, and this one piqued my interest, so I started heading that way. Arrived on scene with a number of family members and people who had been searching for her, and got intel at that point in time she'd been missing for roughly 12 hours. And where she was hiking was a relatively common hiking area, although where she was found was a very unusual area, very steep, something you might consider similar to a double diamond ski run. And that's when we activated our urban search and rescue team. And you can see in the picture we had over 20 firefighters on scene. Paramedics made contact with the patient. She was in pretty bad shape, as the story says. She was clinging to a tree. The bystanders had given her a bunch of blankets, but she'd almost completely stopped shivering, which is a bad sign in terms of hypothermia. So our paramedics on scene, as well as a local ambulance company, started treating her. She had quite a bit of trauma to her lower legs, missing one of her shoes, so she'd been fighting back for a while. The amazing part, as I said, the friend's son, he said he decided just to go look down this hill for no real reason, hollered out and heard her say help. And that was the last word she said. She was effectively catatonic after that. So it was really close. And for firefighters, we go on way too many recoveries. So to have a successful thing where you get to rescue somebody who is in bad shape, get them quickly to the ambulance, get them warmed up. From the time we made contact with the patient to having her in the back of the ambulance was just over a half hour. So successful in that terms. And I'm told that she's made a full recovery and released from the hospital. And for a pretty dangerous situation. In fact, one of our firefighters fell because it was so steep and broke his thumb.
However, after a happy ending, this case would only get more mysterious. Stewart again was reporting missing exactly 1 month to the day on March 14th since her previous disappearance. The circumstances of her vanishing were odd, and the timing was eerie. Unlike her first disappearance, Stewart would not be found within hours this time around. Stewart was last seen in the Bypass Bridge parking area near the Hoover Dam, a 470-mile drive from her Reno, Nevada home. It seemed as though she was embarking on a nature walk, with park officials stating that she had gone to the area to take photos. Unfortunately, she disappeared again and never made it back to her vehicle. Tragically, there have been no updates on Stewart's whereabouts following her latest disappearance. Officials reported that she was last seen wearing a black long-sleeve shirt, black leggings, and black shoes. However, she did not have her cell phone or any identification with her at the time. Stewart is described as a 5'8" woman and weighing approximately 125 pounds. With both disappearances having taken place within such a short time frame, the search for Stewart has become a pressing concern for her friends, family, and authorities. They are appealing to the public for any information that could help locate her. In the meantime, the National Park Service Investigative Services Branch has set up a tip line for anyone with information related to Stewart's disappearance. They are asking individuals to contact them at 1-888-653-0009. As the search for Gail Stewart continues, her loved ones remain hopeful that she will be found safe and sound, just as she was during her first disappearance. The fact that she was found alive after her first ordeal is seen in nothing short of a miracle, and they are hoping for another positive outcome with this disappearance also. The story of Gail Stewart's 2 disappearances is a mystery that has captured the attention of both the local community and the wider public. While the search for her continues, it serves as a reminder for everyone to remain vigilant and aware of their surroundings, especially when venturing into remote areas. It also highlights the importance of carrying identification and a cell phone at all times. If you've enjoyed this content from Universe of Mystery, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It really helps me to bring more mysterious stories to you. The strange disappearance of Mike Heron from the Great Smoky Mountains.
It would definitely be considered a cold case. My mind has gone 100 different ways. Anytime, of course, with all the hope we have of finding them, you know, anytime we hear something, you start to believe it.
Michael Edwin Heron, known as Mike, who was 51 years old, was last spotted on his four-wheel drive ATV at approximately 11 a.m. on August 23, 2008, heading towards a densely wooded area close to his 100-acre residence on Bell Branch Road in Blount County, Tennessee. The location is adjacent to the boundary of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Bell Branch is just a really small road, single lane. It borders the national park. It's sort of back in the corner, so it's really secluded and away from everything.
Following an extensive search of the vicinity near his home, no evidence was discovered except for his abandoned ATV, which had its keys in the ignition, was in high gear, and had the kill switch turned off. There were no footprints, ripped pieces of clothing, noticeable paths through the dense vegetation, bloodstains, body tissue, or skeletal remains found in the area, indicating that Mike had never been there. The authorities presume that he had either been abducted or lost in the forest, while the family suspects that criminal activity was at play. Despite the passage of time, no new evidence has surfaced, leaving the question of what occurred to Mike Heron on that fateful day in August 2008 in the wilderness around Happy Valley, Tennessee, unanswered.
Believe it.
Your mind's just going over so many different things, and you have so many different ideas and just so many questions that you just want answered.
Mike Heron, who was roughly 5 foot 10 inches tall and weighed approximately 185 pounds, was last seen wearing a faded red t-shirt, khaki cargo shorts, and sandals when he disappeared. Had a snake bite scar on one of his feet, a surgical scar on the back of his knee, and a noticeable tattoo on his lower back, along with a few dental caps. Besides having mild high blood pressure, Mike was in good physical shape. He was a native of East Tennessee and attended Lanier High School, where he played football. Following high school, he worked as a trail trimmer for the Park Service, before starting a successful home building company, Mike Heron Builders, which his sons Matt and Andy also worked for. The company had sold much of its housing inventory in 2007, prior to the housing market crash of 2008 and 9, and there were no apparent financial difficulties. Mike was familiar with the Happy Valley region and owned a 100-acre farm with cattle. He enjoyed exploring caves and venturing deep into the nearby Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Happy Valley is an unincorporated community in Blount County, Tennessee, with approximately 500 inhabitants. It lies within a narrow valley bearing the same name on the northwestern border of the Great Smoky Mountains. Happy Valley Road is the primary road access to the area, linking U.S. Route 129 with the Look Rocks section of the Foothills Parkway. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park spans 522,419 acres and covers the ridgeline of the Blue Ridge Mountains, including the Great Smoky Mountains. Often shortened to the Smokies, this park center is crossed by the border between Tennessee and North Carolina, running from the northeast to the southwest. It was established by the United States Congress in 1934 and officially dedicated by President Franklin D. Roosevelt in 1940. The park features some of the highest mountains in the eastern part of the United States. The Appalachian Trail, which runs from Georgia to Maine, passes through the park. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited national park in the United States, with 12.5 million visitors in 2019. Mike's sons, Andy and Matt, were last in contact with him on Saturday, August 23rd, 2008. At around 9:30 a.m., Mike called his son Andy to inform him that he was leaving his condo in Maryville, Tennessee, and would be coming over to his house to collect a lawnmower and trailer for cutting grass on a property in Happy Valley.
He called me Saturday morning just to kind of let me know he was going to head up over the mountain for the, for the weekend. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Although Andy was not home when his father called, he offered to help him load the mower onto the trailer. Matt, Mike's other son, received a voicemail from Mike with the same message. Mike regularly visited his farm in Happy Valley and was eager to mow the grass on a 40-acre neighboring property owned by missionaries who had been away for some time. Andy told his dad he could go ahead and transport the mower by himself if he didn't want to wait, because they only lived about a half hour apart. So he would either see his dad loading the mower and help him, or pass him on the drive. On his way home, Andy passed his dad on Gateway Road, and Mike had the mower and was likely heading towards Bell Branch Road. Later that morning, around 11 a.m., Mike's neighbor saw him pull into his driveway. His neighbor described it as he was hauling a piece of equipment on a trailer. 30 minutes later, they saw him on his four-wheeler ATV, and he waved as he drove down Bell Branch Road. Matt and Andy assumed their dad would call and return the mower and trailer to one of them when he was done, and they went on with their weekends. On Sunday, August 24th, their grandmother Alma called around 2 p.m. concerned that she hadn't heard from Mike and couldn't reach him on his cell phone, even though cell phone reception in Happy Valley was almost non-existent.
I was starting to worry when we were driving up there, just because the whole fact that we were having to drive up there, it was just odd,
Earlier that morning, Alma, Mike's mother, had walked with Matt and Andy from their house on Happy Valley Road to Mike's house on Bell Branch Road, but there was no response when they knocked on his door. They saw Mike's truck in the driveway with a mower and trailer attached, just as their grandfather had seen it earlier that weekend. They also noticed that the lawn had not been mowed. However, Matt and Andy weren't too worried, as their father often spent time away from the house taking care of the cattle or working on the farm. The next day, on August 25th, Alma called again and expressed her concern that she still hadn't heard from Mike. This alarmed Matt and Andy, and they decided to check on their father. Matt first went to Mike's condo on Brown Court in Maryville, where he stayed during the week for work. There, he found 2 of Mike's 3 vehicles in the garage, but nothing seemed out of place. After checking the condo, Matt met up with Andy, and they both went to the farm on Bell Branch Road. Alma had gone back to the farmhouse to check on Mike, but she didn't find him. When Andy and Matt arrived, they saw that Mike's ATV was still in the front yard, and his truck was parked with a lawnmower and trailer attached to the back. Upon closer inspection, they found that the windows of the truck were down, the doors were unlocked, and Mike's keys, ID, and money clip were still inside the vehicle, which was very strange. Matt and Andy came to the realization that the old ATV their grandmother had seen on Mike's property was still there, while the new one that Mike had recently purchased was missing. In addition, Mike's truck was parked in an unusual position, as it was normally moved before the school bus arrived on Monday mornings. Matt was particularly worried about the missing ATV, because it suggested that Mike may have been in an accident and unable to return to the farm. On Monday, August 25th, around noon, the men informed some of the close family members of Mike's disappearance and contacted their mother, who drove to Happy Valley to help them search. Matt and Andy began searching their father's property by repairing a flat tire on an old ATV and driving through all the ATV trails and nearby campgrounds in the national park. They were unable to find any signs of their dad. Around 3 or 4 p.m., Matt and Andy called 911, reporting their father Mike missing to the National Park Service, who transferred the report to the Blount County Sheriff's Office.
Blount
That
County
was first called, and immediately to the Blount County Sheriff's Department. And then within probably an hour or 2, they had met us over at his house.
Between 6 and 7 p.m., search teams from the Sheriff's Office arrived to the farm, talked to Mike's friends in the neighborhood, and attempted to track him with a sniffer dog. However, the search was interrupted by heavy rain that persisted for several days. The search teams agreed to meet with the family before daylight the following morning to continue the search for Mike.
We were called out to his house. I remember it was raining.
That's where the old one was parked, right there. Got everybody together on Tuesday morning very early, and that's when we were doing the grid searches and all of that. And Tuesday, I think, around lunchtime is when they had found the four-wheeler.
It was just really oddly placed. Didn't really find a whole lot of evidence.
We grew up riding four-wheelers and dirt bikes. Me and my brother did, and my dad, and all of us did. And, when you turn something off, that has an ignition switch and a key, you turn the key off, or it'll drain the battery. The lights and stuff.
Gary Whitehead, one of Mike's neighbors who lived on Bell Branch Road, offered to lead search parties despite being in his 80s. When Mike went missing, Grady caught a glimpse of him as he drove past his house on his ATV and waved at him. The Heron and Whitehead families shared a close bond, having worked as a park ranger in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park for more than 3 decades. Grady was well versed with the terrain and possessed excellent tracking skills, and he couldn't believe Mike would just go missing. He was confident in his ability to locate Mike because the thick vegetation and habitat would leave a telltale sign, like flattened leaves, snapped twigs, and crushed bushes if someone had walked through an area or taken a tumble and then tried to seek help. On Tuesday, August 26th, a friend discovered his missing ATV around 12:05 p.m. near Happy Valley Loop, a road leading to Bell Branch Road and about a mile from Mike's residence. The ATV was in an uncommon location near an abandoned cabin and close to the national park, but not inside of it. It appeared to have been abandoned in a hurry or purposely ditched in the thick brush. The vehicle was undamaged and still had fuel in the tank, but it was found in high gear on a steep hill with the ignition switch on and the kill switch off, which was unusual behavior for Mike. Matt, Mike's son, noted that his father would never leave an ATV on as it would drain the battery. Upon seeing the ATV, Matt and his brother knew it was their father's, but they had no explanation as to why it was in that location. They immediately suspected foul play. The next day, over 50 community volunteers and deputies searched the area where the ATV was found. The search proved fruitless as no trace of Mike or any clues were found. The rain made it difficult to gather any forensic evidence, and the searchers could not find any footprints or a trail in the thick underbrush. Dogs were not able to pick up a scent, and there was no evidence of an animal attack, a struggle, or any foul play. The searchers found no torn bits of clothing, blood, tissue, or bones. It was as if Mike had just disappeared without a trace. Around 450 acres were searched by hundreds of volunteers and officials, with some of the area searched more than once, including aerial searches with the help of the Knox County Sheriff's Office helicopter, cadaver dogs from North Carolina, sheriff's deputies on horseback, private citizens with horses, ATVs, and grid searches of the backcountry on foot. The search also covered about 50 miles of hiking trails, and drones were used to map the area. The sheriff's office even brought in divers to search 2 ponds on Mike's property. No signs of human decay were detected by the cadaver dogs when they were brought in the following Wednesday. The official search for Mike Heron was called off by the Blount County Sheriff's Office on Friday, August 29, 2008. In January 2009, another search was conducted, and an article of clothing was found near the location where Mike's ATV was discovered. However, it did not match Mike's. Some bones were also discovered in a fire pit not far from the ATV location, but they were determined to be from a cow. Despite the thorough search, no trace of Mike, his clothes, or his belongings has been found in the woods around where the ATV was located. Friends and family have conducted searches in the years since his disappearance, but nothing has turned up. As a result, Matt and Andy organized an annual hike called Hike for Mike, along with the trails near Mike's property in Happy Valley. Despite a $15,000 reward, no new leads have been found. According to both his sons, Mike Heron would never have willingly left his family. Andy Heron, who had been married to his wife Casey for about 3 months at the time of Mike's disappearance, said that his father was a family-oriented person who loved the outdoors and the Bell Branch property. Matt Heron also expressed his belief that his father did not simply walk away, citing his close relationship with his mother and his excitement about becoming a grandfather. Matt also ruled out the possibility of suicide, stating that his father did not suffer from depression and had no financial or personal enemies. The ATV's ignition being left on suggests that Mike may have abruptly left the trail due to encountering or hearing something in the woods, or being confronted someone or something that caused him to immediately abandon his vehicle. There are some speculations that Mike disappeared as a result of a drug deal gone wrong, or after stumbling upon an illegal marijuana farm. The disappearance of Mike Heron is a tragic and unresolved case that has left his family and the community with more questions than answers. Despite extensive searches and investigations by law enforcement, no trace of Mike has been found.
Lots and stuff.
We get leads, we get tips, and we follow up on all them. Just, we get tips up until like a couple months ago we had tips and we followed up on them.
Thought of a lot of different details, but there's no point in going there because it's just unknown.
We don't believe, there's not any scenario that I've ran to believe that he's still be alive. I believe that he's dead.
No, it's hard to believe. It's been 14 14 years. I'm just proud we've all made it through.
This case has led to various theories about what happened to Mike, ranging from foul play to accidental injury or encountering something dangerous in the woods. However, none of these theories have been confirmed, leaving the fate of Mike Heron a mystery. This story serves as a reminder of the importance of being safe and taking precautions when venturing into the wilderness. It's crucial to always inform someone of your planned route, bring necessary supplies and equipment, and to avoid unknown or potentially dangerous areas. Accidents can happen, and it's important to take measures to ensure your safety and the safety of others.
The search continues for a former Grand Valley State University.
Colin Finnerty hasn't been seen in a couple days.
Dozens of people and also canine units have just been scouring this area looking for any
He was last seen about 8:30 that night.
Search is going on right now, but the weather is hampering the
Finnerty was not familiar with the area.
Still unclear what may have happened to Colin Finnerty is possible.
So far, though, search crews have found nothing.
Welcome back to A Universe of Mystery. Today we'll dive into a story of triumph, tragedy, and the enduring mystery of a man named Colin Finnerty. Colin was an extraordinary individual, known widely for his prowess on the football field, but today we dive deeper, beyond the accolades, into the heart of his life's journey. Colin Finnerty was born on August 18, 1982 in Brighton, Michigan. His early life was marked by an unwavering commitment to football. At Brighton High School, he started making a name for himself, winning the Livingston County Football Player of the Year award as a senior and being named to the Ann Arbor News All-Area First Team. Even then, his talent was indisputable. After redshirting his first year at the University of Toledo, Colin transferred to Grand Valley State University, where he would become a football legend. It was at Grand Valley State that Colin had led his team to win the NCAA Division II football championships in 2003, 2005, and 2006, becoming one of the most successful quarterbacks in college football history. Each game, each season, further solidified his place in the NCAA Division II history.
On Memorial Day weekend, we always go to Baldwin, which is where my parents have a cabin. And it's just a time to relax, spend time with my side of the family.
In the weeks leading up to their trip, Finnerty complained of headaches and restless sleep. He was using oxycodone for his back pain. On Sunday, May 26, 2013, he asked his wife to drop him off at Bray Creek State Forest Campground for a solo fishing trip. 35 minutes later, at dusk, he called his wife in a panic.
He was disoriented. He didn't know where he was in the woods. He was afraid. I just knew when I spoke with him that something wasn't right.
Colin Finnerty said he ran into two men on Baldwin River. He thought they might be following him. He was lost, scared, and confused.
So we looked in the woods all evening. It was getting, darker fast. And so I called the police to see if they could help us find him.
At 9:36 p.m., Finnerty made another call that lasted just 20 seconds. He told his brother-in-law, "I don't know where I am." By Monday morning, helicopters hovered above the 16 square miles of forest. Search and rescue dogs searched the brush.
We went over to the campground where he went missing. We fully expected Colin to show up. He was tough. He could take care of himself, even in the woods.
All of us had our own idea of what he might have done. Maybe he took off and he was hiding, or he was lost and didn't know where he was.
Another night passed with no sign of Finnerty. Grand Valley State University sent a busload of coaches, players, and staff to look for Finnerty. By then, nearly 40 officers and hundreds of volunteers were scouring the woods. After 24 hours, Colin's friends, family, and searchers became concerned for his safety. While searching the forest, Colin's friend Kurt Ains, another former GVSU quarterback, and his wife came to a clearing, where Kurt's wife yelled, "Oh my God, I think I found him." The location confused Kurt because of how close the road was to his final location. It was so close he could hear the traffic. This was also only about 4/10 of a mile from where he made his final phone call. He was found face down, still wearing his waders and his fishing vest. Everyone was in disbelief. Police ruled out foul play. The initial autopsy was unable to determine the cause of death. In search of an explanation, the Finnerty family looked back to his past. Finnerty's brain was sent to Boston University to determine whether he suffered from CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a degenerative brain disease caused by repeated head trauma, common in football players. When the results came in, it was found that Finnerty was a stage 2 out of 4 for CTE, so he had the disease for a few years. The disease advanced in his brain even after he had stopped playing. However, family and friends dispute the idea that his brain was damaged or that he had any kind of dementia. No one saw any signs of that, but experts agree that CTE doesn't start with just one hit to the head. However, Finnerty only had one diagnosed concussion in his career. Although it's impossible to connect having stage 2 CTE to the series of circumstances surrounding his death, doctors agree it may have played a role. An updated autopsy determined that Finnerty died from pneumonia and inhaled his own vomit after he became disoriented. Cullen Finnerty's story is one of triumph, resilience, and an indomitable spirit. A man who rose from a small town in Michigan to the heights of college football, leaving an indelible mark on everyone who knew him, watched him, and cheered for him. But Cullen's story is also a reminder of the very human cost of the sports we love. The hidden struggles that often go unnoticed until it's too late. His untimely death sent shockwaves through the world of football and beyond, prompting a deeper examination of the sport's impact on its players. His legacy, however, lives on. Every pass thrown on the football fields of Grand Valley State University echoes with the memory of Cullen's powerful arm. Every victory achieved carries the spirit of the winningest quarterback in NCAA history. The echoes of his name, the memories of his achievements, and the lessons from his life continue to inspire future generations of athletes. His family, his friends, his fans, they remember him not for just the records he set or the games he won, but for the man he was. A devoted son, a loving husband, a fantastic father, a loyal friend. Cullen's wife, Jennifer, and their 2 children lost more than a football legend. They lost a loving husband and father. His parents, Tim and Maureen, lost their son. But in their loss, they have found the strength and the love and support of the community, the fans, and all who knew and admired Cullen. In the face of their grief, they have chosen to honor Cullen's memory by raising awareness about CTE and the risk associated with contact sports. Their courage serves as a beacon for other families navigating similar tragedies. If you've enjoyed this content from Universe of Mystery, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the channel. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. The first snowfall of the year is usually a beautiful and joyous celebration in the small ski town of Mammoth Lakes in California's Eastern Sierra. But the early October snow in 2013 was disheartening for the searchers of a missing Pennsylvania man. Hope was fading with the inevitable change in season, and those close to him were starting to understand the grave reality that he may never be found. From more than 2,500 miles away, his loved ones experienced a tug-of-war between despair and optimism, feeling helpless across the country as they went through the motions of their daily lives. 3 months earlier, in July, the 39-year-old high school math teacher dropped his car off at a Mammoth Auto car shop for repairs. He was visiting the area for a summer climbing vacation when the car blew a head gasket. The friends Green was traveling with headed home, and Green planned to drive to Colorado to join other friends for more climbing as soon as his car was ready. "I may have to spend the rest of my life here in Mammoth," he texted to a friend as he got more and more frustrated with how long the repair was taking. He was anxious to get on with his trip. No one has heard from Green since he last talked to his parents on July 16, 2013. He did not tell anyone his plans for the following day. He never picked up his car. His campsite was left tidy, and his credit cards and phone have not been used since. Matthew had a habit of ripping out pages from a guidebook as to where he planned to hike, instead of taking the entire book with him. When he returned from a hike, he would replace the missing pages as a trophy of sorts. The only clue that was found was a few pages torn from a mountaineering guidebook, and this pointed toward the Minarets and Ritter Range. in the Ansel Adams Wilderness. At the time, Mammoth Lakes was experiencing sunshine and above-average temperatures. On July 29, 2013, Matthew Green was reported missing, and his body has not been found in the years since. In 2013, more than 600,000 Americans were reported missing in the United States, according to the FBI and National Crime Information Center. At the end of the year, nearly 85,000 of those cases were still active. At the time he went missing, Matthew Green was the only unsolved missing person case in Mammoth Lakes, and in January 2014, Reed's family filed for a death certificate in Pennsylvania. But the case is still open with the Mammoth Lakes Police Department. Most people assume that Matt was a victim of some sort of climbing accident, a fall of some sort, said his friend John Greco, that met him in California. But all his friends agreed that he was experienced, skilled, and careful in the mountains. Born on September 8, 1973, to Robert and Patricia Green, Matthew is the second of 4 children. He grew up in rural Pennsylvania, developing a love for the outdoors from a young age. He was a Boy Scout and often went hunting and fishing with his dad. Growing up in the boondocks of Franklin Townships was a blessing. Green wrote in 1999 in a letter to his sister, Tiffany Minto, when he was in the Peace Corps. I came out of there with independence, a love of nature, and a determination to succeed in school, life, or whatever. When they were kids, Green would take Minto fishing and target shooting at the lake, where they'd stay until bugs feasted on their arms. They went hiking together often, even in the really cold winters common to the Northeast. The ice didn't slow him down one bit. I struggled to keep up, Minto said. Green loved to run, competing on the track team in high school and running the Boston Marathon a few times as an adult. As the student speaker for his high school graduation, Green urged his classmates to take chances. The time has come to fulfill our current goals and to set new ones to be conquered later. In our future travels and endeavors, no matter where they take us, we must not use our youthful imaginations. We must not be too scared to take risks, and most of all, we must live life to the fullest. Matthews said in his high school graduation speech. Green went on to study at Clemson University in South Carolina before transferring to and graduating from Penn State University. As a Peace Corps volunteer on a teaching assignment in Papua New Guinea from 1998 to 2001, he regularly wrote letters to her sister giving her advice on life, college, and relationships. Any associations you have in your life can be lumped into one of these 3 categories: people who push you forward, people who drag you down, and people who do neither, he wrote. He also wrote to friends, telling tales of his adventures, like walking 6 hours to fix a radio transceiver in a hiking tour, which was a 9-hour trek across dense brush and mountainous terrain, where he found himself crossing a roaring 100-foot waterfall, wading for shallow rivers, carefully walking, and descending countless valleys. In his letters, Green not only gave accounts of his work and explorations, but he also contemplated life and its greater meanings. He wrote, "It's a pitiful thing when people reach the point in their lives where passionate inclinations in their lives no longer win out over regular routines. I don't know why our minds always gravitate towards reason. It's a nuisance. At least for me. It takes a lot of mental effort to give in to his passions, but once I've devoted myself to them, I'm never plagued with regret." When he returned from the Peace Corps, Green got a job as a high school math teacher in Pennsylvania and would go on summer climbing trips to fulfill his needs for adventure. He often traveled out west solo for camping, hiking, and climbing, occasionally meeting up with friends along the way. In 2006, he road tripped through South Dakota, Wyoming, and on to Red Lodge, Montana. When his car broke down at the end of the trip, he tooled around town and hitchhiked to a trailhead. In his trip log, he wrote over the course of a few days, "I put in an awesome 10-hour hike. The rock was surprisingly solid. Yet, some big pieces moved. I returned to find that rodents had torn into my engine plug wires, vacuum hoses, and mostly wire sheathing. I coasted into town and took my car into the shop. They should get to it tomorrow morning. The next day, he wrote, same as yesterday, no car yet. Hitched a ride out to the Bear Track and hiked up the Silver Plateau. It's awesome up there. Good mix of pines and open fields. More reading, more net searching, coming up with a plan. Yellowstone, climb Tiwanaut, Wind River Range, ring the bells, maybe the Great Sands Dunes, and Long's Peak, then home. Still waiting on that car. Green arrived in Mammoth Lake a few days before he met up with his friends John and Jill Greco on June 28, 2013. He set up camp at New Shady Rest Campground on the edge of town and paid for July 7th. John, Jill, and their 9-year-old son checked in at a hotel nearby. Over the next 10 days, Green and John climbed many of the region's classic routes, places like Crystal Crag, Clark's Canyon, and the Gong Show Crag. They also hiked a few of the Eastern Sierra's classic alpine routes. Green kept a handwritten log of his climbs, sometimes elaborate and other times brief. He often checked and reported conditions on websites. During this trip, he wrote on Summit Post, did the V-Notch on Saturday, July 6th. We easily crossed it via a snow bridge. We studied the route well for signs of rockfall before committing, and only had one baseball-sized rock rocket down during our ascent. Tons of rocks were falling the U-Notch. During Green's time in Mammoth, his Subaru was in and out of the auto repair shop. It would get fixed, then overheat, driving up a steep grade and go back to the mechanic. It was finally diagnosed with a blown head gasket, which would take additional time to repair. On July 7th, John and Jill were scheduled to leave Mammoth Lakes. John had a work meeting in Southern California the next day, and Matt planned to leave for Colorado to meet up with some other friends. That morning, the whole group hiked to Emerald Lake in the Mammoth Lakes Basin before Matt continued up the trail to the Mammoth Crest, and John and Jill headed down to their car to begin the drive. It was the last time any of Matt's friends would ever see him again. As we were walking down the trail, I say to my husband, you know, he goes off like this, and he doesn't tell anybody. If something happens to him, nobody will know where to look, Jill said. Her husband said, yeah, and the bad thing about it is that his car won't be at the trailhead. Even though Green had planned to leave that day as well, his car was still in the shop. He was fine being stuck in Mammoth. It's not like he was in the middle of some remote backcountry area. There were shuttles to take you all over the place, and he thought it was only going to be a couple of days. Over the next 8 days, Green continued to climb classic Sierra peaks and routes, checking in with John and Jill by text message every few days. On July 8th, Green soloed Regal Huff Minaret, a 10,560-foot spire in the Ritter Range west of Mammoth Lakes. On July 9th, Green headed north to climb Dana Kowar, a popular 1,200-foot ice route on a 13,000-foot peak near Yosemite Park's entrance. Later, he sent John an update. The Regal Huff Minaret took less than 6.5 hours round trip, but was scary, and the Dana Kowar was easy but fun and had the best ice of the trip. July 10th was a rest day. On July 11th, Green took the shuttle to Red's Meadow Valley to hike and climb in the Minarets and Ritter Range again. On the ride to the trailhead, he spoke to a Devil's Post maintenance worker. They talked about climbing Mount Ritter, Banner Peak, Clyde Minaret, and the cross-country hikes between the Minaret Lakes. Matthew was not sure of his itinerary for the day when he got off the shuttle at the Devil's Post Pile Trailhead, but he eventually climbed the 12,280-foot Clyde Minaret, the tallest of the Minaret's jagged peaks. From July 12th to the 15th, Green hiked the cross-country route on Mammoth Crest, and he climbed Unicorn Peak in Yosemite's high country. On July 16th, he went to the Mammoth Lakes Library to use the internet. He called his parents and the mechanic, then sent a few text messages and made a small purchase at Rite Aid. He paid the campground for the night and the next day. Since Jill and John left Mammoth, they continued texting back and forth with Green every few days. Jill updated him on details for a trip to France they were tentatively planning later that summer, and John received updates on the climbs Green had done. Jill grew concerned when Green stopped responding to texts. At first, she didn't think anything about it. Then she called him, and her husband sent him a text. Again, they didn't hear from him. On July 21st, after 3 unpaid nights, the host at the campground reported the abandoned campsite and suspicion of a missing person to the Mammoth Lakes Police Department. 2 officers responded to the call, visited the campground, and recorded the information on a police log. Campsite number 164 was left intact, but Green had not returned to it. His neatly folded laundry was stored inside the tent along with some gear. His food was in the bear box. MLPD Detective Doug Hordback said, "We can't really do a whole lot unless a missing person report is filed. We'll get a name and the information, we'll put it on the log, and that's as far as it goes at this point." So the campsite was broken down, Green's gear was put into storage, and new campers soon occupied the site. On July 26, Green's mom expressed concern that she hadn't heard from Matt. She'd been leaving messages that went unanswered. But Green often went on long hikes and backpacking trips and didn't return messages immediately. Sometimes it would take him days or weeks to readjust to society after a good trek. He enjoyed the solitude of the wilderness and was not into technology, so his sister Minto brushed off his mom's concerns. She said he probably couldn't charge his phone or was spending some time in the backcountry. They knew that Green could not use his car phone charger because his Subaru was still in the shop, so she thought maybe his phone was dead. Still, she knew that his lack of response was unusual, and she grew increasingly concerned when she didn't hear from him for 10 days. John called Tony, Green's friend, that he was planning to meet in Colorado to see if Green had arrived. Maybe he was spending time in the backcountry, Tony suggested. On July 29th, 7 days after Green's campsite was packed up and put into storage, Jill called the Norco Goodyear to inquire about his car. She was told it had been ready since July 18th. Green had not responded to a message saying the car was ready, and he had not picked it up. Jill then called the Mammoth Lakes Welcome Center and talked to a ranger. She asked for someone to check on his campsite, and the ranger insisted she file a missing persons report. 13 days after Green disappeared, he was officially reported missing. Green was no stranger to climbing mountains. His list of ascents logged on Summit Post read like the resume of an experienced mountaineer. His friends said he was skillful on ice, calculated in the outdoors, and did not take risks. More than 2 weeks after Green talked to his parents for the last time, Detective Hornback contacted Verizon for an emergency information request. Verizon concluded that Green's phone had been powered off for quite some time, and there was no way to track the current location. The last ping was registered to the cellular tower on Mammoth Mountain on July 16th. According to Detective Hordbeck, the ping created a cone-shaped triangle with towers in Fresno and June Lake, indicated that Green's phone was located within that region, which consists of mostly of the Ansel Adams Wilderness. The Mammoth Lakes Police Department did not find any evidence of foul play, and the possibility of suicide was quickly ruled out. Green did not have any financial trouble. He was single and showed no signs of depression. When the Grecos last saw him in Mammoth, Jill said he was as normal and optimistic as he normally was. On July 31st, Detective Hornbeck notified Bill Green, no relation, at Mono County Sheriff's Search and Rescue. Typically, when a person is reported overdue in the mountains, SAR launches an investigation. They are quick to respond and have a healthy roster of volunteers that are experienced mountaineers, but Matthew Green did not tell anyone where he was going. And his car was still at the mechanics, so they didn't even have a trailhead to go from. Without a known location, SAR could not begin a search. Matthew Green could have gone anywhere. Most of his equipment was stored in his car, which was parked outside the Norco Goodwear while waiting for repair, meaning he had access to his personal belongings 24 hours a day. From an inventory of the equipment left in his car and tent, friends were able to deduce what he was carrying with him. He was probably wearing a blue outdoor ball cap, a black t-shirt over a long-sleeve green shirt, and mountaineering approach shoes. He had a large black and white mountain hardware backpack, an ice axe, black diamond crampons, and was either carrying or wearing boots. He did not have overnight gear. Since he had no vehicle, Green's only option to get to trailheads was to either walk, hitchhike, or public transport. With a number of local shuttle services, which Green had used in the week prior to his disappearance, he could have made it to a number of trailheads, from the Mammoth Lakes Basin to Yosemite Valley. From the guidebook found in his belongings, Chapter 12 was torn out, which included minarets and June Lake. With the shuttle to Red's Meadow, Green could have been at any one of 3 main trailheads in the valley that leads to a network of paths that access the trail ranges in the wilderness. The 231,533-acre wilderness area is located west of Mammoth Lakes and the Sierra Nevada crest in Madera County. It shares a border with Yosemite National Park to the north and the 581,000-acre John Muir Wilderness to the south. The region is popular for hiking, backpacking, and climbing. The mountain range is vast and rugged. Even though SAR could not launch a full-on search without a known destination, they sent teams to the Minaret region on training missions. They checked summit registers in the range, and a helicopter team did a flyover. Detective Hornbeck worked with the U.S. Forest Service to contact people with overnight wilderness permits for the region. If anyone spoke with Green on the trail or shuttle or gave him a ride, they have not come forward yet, or they do not know he is missing. Green's family hired an aerial tour company to fly over the region. They mounted a red digital camera to the wing of an old Piper airplane. The camera is capable of recording high-quality images at 30 frames per second while being zoomed in at 3x. They recorded 100 gigabytes of data that was later processed and examined, but showed no evidence of Green. Detective Hornbeck followed up on every single tip. Psychics from around the world called with information after looking into a crystal ball or having a dream. A retired police officer in Minden, Nevada, reported a sighting of a young man that fit the description of Green at a Nevada gas station. A woman said she had given Green and his dog a ride to Colorado, but Green did not have a dog. Glasses were found near the Inyo Crater's trailhead less than 10 miles from Green's campsite, but the prescription did not match. The police talked with campers in the lakes adjacent to Green's. They interviewed the employees at the auto shop. No one had any concrete information. What frustrated them the most was that he was so experienced, but he didn't tell anyone where he was going. There's nothing wrong with sending a text and saying, "Hey, I'm going to go climb in the minarets today." That would solve a lot of problems. Detective Hornbeck said. Green's sister began compiling facts and information creating a Find Matthew Green Facebook page. She did interviews with reporters. Friends started forum on climbing websites seeking information. Conversations were started and theories were tossed around. Where would Matthew Green have gone? The MLPD press release was published in the local papers. Media outlets in Pennsylvania picked up the story, and a short news brief made it Los Angeles Times. What makes the minaret so appealing to climbers is also what makes the Rubbit Peak so dangerous for climbing. The Ritter Range is located within the Sierra Nevada, just west of the crest. The jagged landscape of the minarets and sharp summits of Mount Ritter and Banner Peak can be seen from all over Mammoth Lakes. The range stands tall and mighty, separating the Sierra from the rounder mountains in the coastal range. Unlike the granite that makes up much of the Sierra, the Ritter Range is metavolcanic rock, which was formed in several volcanic supereruptions, according to Alan Glassner, professor of geology at the University of North Carolina and author of a book about the geology in and around Yosemite. These eruptions produce hot volcanic rock deposits that flow much like an avalanche. Metavolcanic rocks are generally kind of sketchy for climbing because they flake apart easily and are not nearly as strong as granite. That's why they form spiky landform like the minarets instead of big smooth cliffs like Half Dome. It's been years since Matthew Green disappeared from Mammoth Lakes, and still no trace of him has surfaced. In August 2014, his campground neighbors returned to the area and saw a missing persons sign. They called the police department and met with Detective Hornbeck and Bill Green from Search and Rescue. They said they invited Matthew to go for a hike with them, but he declined. He did not say, or they could not remember where he was going. Since Green was carrying an ice axe and crampons, Mount Ritter is a logical guess for his destination on July 17, 2013. The Southeast Glacier is the most prominent snow route in the range. The trailhead is accessible from public transportation, was in the chapter of the guidebook that he was carrying. For even the fittest of mountaineers, climbing Mount Ritter in one day is a huge feat, and the hike is 7 miles one way. And then it is another 4,000 vertical feet of off-trail hiking and climbing to reach the summit. At the time of Matt's disappearance, I had a pretty strong suspicion that he had gone to Mount Ritter, but after reflecting on it and revisiting the area last summer, I am not so sure, said John Greco. I don't think the climb itself would be particularly appealing to Matt. It seems like somewhat of a slog with limited technical challenges. Green did not have any unknown pre-existing medical conditions, and an animal attack is doubtful, as no evidence were ever found. There has never been a human death by mountain lion or black bear in the region, and grizzly bears haven't been there since the 1920s. It seems likely that Matthew Green had a fatal climbing accident. Maybe he would have set out to climb the region's tallest and most prolific mountain on his last day in the area, but there is no hard evidence. If Matthew Green hitchhiked like he had been known to do in the past, he could be anywhere. And since he had climbed in the minarets a few days prior to his disappearance, it is possible that the chapter of the guidebook was still in his pack. But there was enough suspicion that multiple search parties focused on the minarets and the Ritter Range. Green's close friend and climbing partners went to Mammoth Lakes to search in August 2013, and a number of local climbers and mountaineers have spearheaded their own small search parties in search of Matthew. Dean Rosnaw, a former SAR officer and member, has spent nearly 30 days searching for Green. In August 2013, Rosnaw focused on the minarets. But late that summer, he began to gravitate toward Ritter and Banner. In a search area so vast, what we are looking for is so small. One will literally have to step on the evidence to find it, Rosnaw said. A lot of gear has been hauled out of the wilderness areas that surround Mammoth Lakes. but none of it has been identified as Matthew Green's. The unknown and lack of resolution is part of a grieving process unlike any other. When the snow started to fall in 2013, the search came to a halt and the missing person posters were taken down for the season. The family petitioned for and received a death certificate in Pennsylvania so they could settle his affairs. There has been no memorial service. The hardest part is the not knowing, said his friend Tom Davidoff. If he had let someone know where he was going, we'd have a completely different situation. But you can't get mad at him. We've all done it. Green's closest friends and climbing partners each say they don't climb as much as they used to, and most of them can't really explain why, other than the disappearance of Matthew. There is a lingering feeling of disappearance and sorrow that just dampens their enthusiasm. Greco hasn't done any mountain climbing since Matt disappeared, with the exception of the searches that they did for him. He can attribute it to a lack of partners, work, and family responsibilities getting in the way, but in truth, I just haven't been motivated to make it happen, he said. In 2014, Green's father, Robert, spent the summer in Mammoth Lakes. At 69 years old, he was slightly overweight and out of shape, but he began training so he was conditioned to hike in the High Sierra. He wanted to spend the summer in the mountains where his son is presumed dead, and he hiked nearly 700 miles that summer. He explored the trails that Matt had enjoyed. He searched with Ross Naw, and he climbed for the first time. Greco led Robert up Crystal Crag so he could stand on a summit that Matt had also stood on in the year prior. Green's mother wanted him to get a taste of the kind of climbing Matt loved to do most, so he could hopefully understand the appeal and attraction. She just kept thinking about how Matt would have enjoyed watching his dad climb, something I'm sure he never would have considered doing before Matt's disappearance. Green's mother, Patricia, visited Mammoth Lakes that summer for the first and only time for 1 week with her daughter. Not a hiker, Patricia spent most of the time in town, while Minto hit the trails with her father. She felt completely at peace and in awe of the beauty, but turning home just felt like she was turning her back on Matt and the possibility of finding him. She wished she could move on, but it's just impossible. To this day, no trace of Matthew Green has ever been found. What do you think happened to Matthew Green in the mountains? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It really helps me provide this content to you and tell the stories of the missing. There have been numerous strange and inexplicable disappearances and deaths in the remote wilderness areas around the world. These places are often treacherous and unforgiving, making them difficult for humans to navigate. Despite the inherent dangers of venturing into these wilds, there are cases where strange clues and eerie circumstances seem to be present. One of these unusual cases occurred in Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. Crater Lake National Park is located in Klamath County and is part of the majestic Cascade Range of southwest Oregon. The area is characterized by sprawling forests, fields of wildflowers, tranquil meadows, and towering cliffs and peaks. The air at Crater Lake is incredibly clean and clear, making it an incredibly beautiful location. The centerpiece of the park is Crater Lake, a strikingly beautiful body of water that is a deep shade of azure blue. Crater Lake covers an area of 21 square miles and has a maximum depth of 1,949 feet, making it the deepest lake in the United States and the third deepest lake in the world based on average depth. It is a caldera lake that was formed by Mount Mazama, a 12,000-foot tall volcano that erupted and collapsed approximately 7,700 years ago, forming the lake. Despite its beauty, the lake has been the scene of many unexplained and strange disappearances. A man vanished in the wilderness of Crater Lake National Park, leaving behind only strange clues and a bizarre set of remains that defy explanation. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance and subsequent discovery has led many to believe that there is something otherworldly or inexplicable at work in this remote, beautiful wilderness area. In 1975, Charles McCullough, a 19-year-old aspiring photographer, was drawn to the majestic Crater Lake National Park, which was covered in snow at the time. McCullough had left his home in Virginia in 1974 to embark on a cross-country photography expedition, traveling by bus and stopping at places along the way to go hiking, have adventures, and take pictures for a photographic travel journal. He arrived in Eugene, Oregon in January 1975, where he stayed with a friend for a few weeks. During this time, he planned to take a 2-day trip to the lake to do some winter photography work. He packed up his equipment and headed out on his own. Despite the harsh winter conditions, McCullough was well prepared for his journey, and with a camera in his hand, he set out into the wilderness. It was a normal thing for the intrepid adventurer and photographer to do, so his friend thought nothing of it when Charles said he'd be back in a few days. However, when 2 days came and went with no sign of Charles, his friend assumed that he had decided to extend his trip, but when another day passed with no sign of him, authorities were notified. Authorities found witnesses who had seen the man in the Diamond Lake area, which is about 45 minutes by car from Crater Lake. It is believed that he had continued his trip from there and had arrived safely at the lake. However, other witnesses had claimed that Charles had headed out hiking along the North Road, which was odd since there had been about 5 foot of snow along that route at the time. It was thought that he might have changed trails after encountering the snow, but no one knew for sure, and there was no sign of him or his campsite in the area. Despite the exhaustive efforts from authorities and the tireless work of Charles's father, who flew out to aid in the search effort and camped out on the shore of the lake for the entire summer, not a single trace of the missing man was turned up at this time. The search, which grew to involve the FBI, was hampered by immersed drifts of snow, some of which were over 12 feet deep. Even after the snow melted, it seemed that if the forest had just swallowed Charles up, leaving no clues behind. Despite the extensive search efforts, no trace of Charles or his campsite was found. The lack of evidence sparked speculation of his disappearance, ranging from the possibility of him changing his plans and leaving the park on his own to being a victim of foul play. Charles's friends and family expected foul play, and the involvement of the FBI seemed to confirm their suspicions. It was highly unusual for the FBI to come involved in a missing persons case without the suspicion of foul play. The FBI's involvement was so peculiar that one of Charles's friends involved in the search wrote to then Senator William L. Squat to inquire about it. The lack of any evidence caused speculation that Charles may have run off to start a new life somewhere. However, family and friends insisted that he would never have done this. Law enforcement seemed to embrace the idea that he had simply gotten lost and died out in the wilderness. Another theory was that he had been kidnapped or even murdered. Charles's friends and family suspected that he had been the victim of some sort of foul play, which would explain the FBI's involvement, although they made no public statement to this effect. Authorities shied away from the idea of foul play because there was no evidence to support it. Their main theories were that he had run off or had suffered some sort of misadventure out in the wilderness. In the meantime, there was no sign of Charles, no new leads, and it was as if he had just vanished off the face of the earth. It wasn't until the next year, in October 1976, that a pair of hikers found a battered, torn-up backpack down in a remote canyon located 12 miles from where Charles had been supposedly camped out. The hikers brought the backpack to a ranger station, and within a side pocket they found a set of keys belonging to a Volkswagen, which was the type of car Charles had owned. Sensing a break in the cold case had been found, rangers ran a comparison with a photocopy of Charles' actual car key and found it was a perfect match. A patrol was immediately sent out on horseback to the area where the backpack had been found, near a place called Briery Creek. It was not long before human remains were found near the creek, and although it seemed like the final piece of the puzzle, things would only get stranger from here. Upon a log in the vicinity, a pair of jeans was discovered by a search party. Surprisingly, the jeans were in good condition despite being exposed to the elements for an extended period. However, there were no traces of a shirt, coat, or boots nearby. Inside the socks protruding from the jeans, broken toe bones were discovered. The jeans also contained nothing but a broken shin bone. Adding to the mystery, the belt on the jeans were unbuckled and the buttons were unfastened, indicating that the man may have removed them in the cold. Strangely, the rest of the body was nowhere to be found, and a ranger had described it if the man had just melted away. The search team had also found a crown of a skull and a few bone fragments located about 12 feet from the jeans. Despite a comprehensive search of the area, no additional remains of Charles were discovered. and all of his clothing, except for his jeans and socks, were missing. None of Charles's personal belongings, such as his wallet or camera, were found in the area either. The condition of Charles McCullers' remains were not only bizarre, but also raised many questions regarding how he ended up in that location. The area was remote and rugged, making it almost impossible to access, especially during the deep drifts of snow at the time of his disappearance. The fact that he was able to hike 12 miles away from his camp on foot, without shoes on, in such conditions, was baffling. Furthermore, it was puzzling as to why he would have gone to that location in the first place. The missing clothing only added to the mystery. Authorities attributed the missing clothing to a phenomenon called paradoxical undressing, where someone with hypothermia will feel hot and remove their clothes in an attempt to cool off in freezing conditions. However, this theory did not explain the condition of his remains in this completely bizarre state. Authorities ruled Charles McCullers' death as natural, stating that his body had been ravaged by wildlife after his death. However, his family did not accept this explanation. His brother, Steve, expressed his disbelief in the authorities' ruling, saying that the broken-off shin bone might tell a different story, one of foul play. Steve believed that Charles may have hitchhiked a ride with someone that stole his camera equipment, money, and may have shot him, and disposed of his body in the most remote part of Crater Lake, hoping that animals would destroy the evidence by spring. The mysterious disappearance and death of Charles McCuller remains unsolved to this day, leaving his friends and family with unanswered questions and lingering suspicions. Despite the odd circumstances of his remains being found miles away from his campsite and in a state of extreme decomposition, authorities closed the case, declaring it to be a death of exposure to the elements. The story highlights the need for thorough investigation and the need to investigate all possible explanations, including foul play. It also emphasizes the need for effective communication between law enforcement agencies and families of missing persons. Finally, it underscores the value of community involvement and the tireless efforts of volunteers and search and rescue operations. Charles McCullers' story serves as a cautionary tale for hikers and outdoor enthusiasts. It is also important to inform someone of your plans, including your intended route and expected time of return, and any alternate plans in case of an emergency. This information can be shared with family, friends, park rangers, or other authorities. Hikers should also be aware of the signs and symptoms of hypothermia, especially in the high-altitude terrain. If you've enjoyed this content from a universe of mystery, please subscribe, like, and share to the channel. It really helps me out, and it'll allow me to continue to bring mysterious stories to you. Welcome back to a universe of mystery. On today's episode, we'll delve into the tragic story of Jody Zetchik and Gerald Duran, a couple who attempted to hike the Pacific Coast Trail, or PCT for short, in the winter of 1983. Their decision to take on the treacherous winter conditions led to a fateful event that ultimately cost them their lives. Jody Zetchik and Gerald Duran were a young, adventurous couple who shared a love for the outdoors. In 1983, they decided to take on the ambitious challenge of hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, a 2,650-mile-long trail that stretches from the United States-Mexico border in California to the United States-Canadian border in Washington. The trail generally takes around 5 months to complete, and many hikers choose to hike it during the warmer months. However, Jody and Gerald made the fateful decision to attempt the trail during the winter. Jody and Gerald set off on their winter adventure. Beginning at the northern end of the trail in Washington, they planned to travel south towards Wrightwood, California, where they would stock up on supplies before continuing their journey. As they made their way down the trail, they encountered freezing temperatures, snowstorms, and treacherous terrain. Despite these challenges, the couple pressed on, determined to complete their quest. As Jody and Gerald neared Wrightwood, they made a critical error. They mistakenly descended into the wrong canyon, leading them into much steeper terrain than they anticipated or prepared for. As they continued downward, the already dangerous conditions grew worse, with icy slopes making the descent even more treacherous. As the couple tried to navigate the icy slopes, tragedy struck. They slipped on the ice, losing their footing and falling close to 100 feet down a steep incline. The fall proved to be fatal for both Jody and Gerald, and their dream of conquering the Pacific Crest Trail during the winter came to a tragic end. On December 3, 1983, search and rescue teams located the body of Jody and Gerald. The efforts to find them had been difficult, as the winter conditions made the search area even more dangerous for the rescuers. The terrain, combined with the weather, had created an environment where accidents were all too common. The tragic loss of Jody and Gerald serves as a somber reminder of the risks associated with taking on extreme outdoor adventures. Their story highlights the importance of proper planning, knowledge of the terrain, and respect for the environment, especially when faced with harsh winter conditions. In the wake of Jody and Gerald's tragic deaths, the hiking community has learned several lessons. One is the importance of knowing one's limits and being aware of the dangers associated with undertaking a challenging hike like the Pacific Crest Trail in the wintertime. Additionally, proper preparation and planning are crucial, as the couple's decision to descend into the wrong canyon ultimately led to their demise. Another lesson from Jody and Gerald's story is the importance of having the right safety gear and training for the conditions encountered on a hike. In this case, the couple would have benefited from equipment such as crampons, ice axes, and ropes, which could have helped them navigate the icy slopes more safely. Furthermore, training and mountaineering skills could have potentially saved their lives. Jody and Gerald's tragic end serves as a reminder of the immense power of nature and the need to respect it. While the allure of conquering a challenging hike like the Pacific Crest Trail in winter can be tempting, it is essential to remember that nature can be unforgiving, especially during harsh conditions. The story reinforces the importance of making well-informed decisions when embarking on any outdoor adventure, taking into account the potential risks and preparing accordingly. Although their story ended in tragedy, Jody and Gerald's ambitious attempt to hike the Pacific Crest Trail in winter has left a lasting impact on the hiking community. Their story has inspired others to push their limits, while also serving as a cautionary tale about the importance of proper preparation, respecting nature, and making informed decisions. Since Jody and Gerald's ill-fated journey, the Pacific Crest Trail has continued to grow in popularity, attracting hikers from all over the world. While most still choose to hike the trail during the warmer months, their story has not deterred a select few from attempting the trail during the winter. Those who do, however, are now more likely to be better prepared, thanks in part to the lessons learned from Jody and Gerald's tragic end. Now, we'll dive into the unsolved mystery of Chris Sherpa Fowler, an experienced hiker who vanished while attempting to complete the Pacific Crest Trail in 2016. Join us as we unravel the details of his disappearance, the ongoing search efforts, and the relentless determination of his stepmother to bring him home. Chris Fowler, a 34-year-old outdoorsman from Ohio, embarked on an adventure of a lifetime in 2016. He set out to hike the PCT, a 2,650-mile trail that stretches from Mexico to Canada, traversing diverse landscapes from desert to mountain ranges. Chris began his journey well prepared, training with a friend in Colorado and planning for packages to be sent to multiple checkpoints along the trail. He started the hike with his friend, but they agreed to separate if their pace changed. Along the way, Chris earned the trail name Sherpa and regularly checked in with his family and friends. On October 12, 2016, with less than 400 miles left to complete the PCT, Chris disappeared. He was last seen at a Cracker Barrel in White Press, Washington, where he stopped for coffee before heading back to the trail. His phone was shut off about an hour later, and he was never seen again. When Chris's parents realized they hadn't heard from him in 3 weeks, they contacted authorities, friends, and fellow hikers. The Yakima County Sheriff's Office began an extensive search, eventually concluding that Chris had likely been caught in a powerful storm unprepared and succumbed to the elements or hypothermia. Despite the official conclusion, many theories have circulated about Chris's fate. Some believe he intentionally disappeared, while others suggest he fell victim to an animal attack or foul play. However, no solid evidence has been found to support any of these theories. Sally Fowler, Chris's stepmother, had dedicated herself to finding her son. She had retraced his steps, organized search efforts, and used social media to share his story. Through her dedication, she became a vital member of the hiking community, advocating for safety measures and helping families of other missing hikers. In collaboration with the family of another missing PCT hiker, David O'Sullivan, Sally co-founded the Fowler O'Sullivan Foundation. The foundation helps families of missing hikers navigate the search process, connects them to resources, and supports initiatives to prevent future missing hiker cases. Despite years of searching, Chris Fowler remains missing. His stepmother and the hiking community continue to hold on to the hope that he may still be found. If you have any information about Chris's case, please contact the Yakima County Sheriff's Office at 509-574-2535. Now we'll explore the mysterious disappearance of Christopher Sylvia, an experienced hiker who vanished while hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. We'll be taking a close look at the details surrounding his disappearance, discussing the search efforts that took place, and pondering the possibilities of what could have happened to him. Chris Sylvia was a 28-year-old hiker who was last seen on February 16, 2015, wearing brown hiking boots, a dark-colored jacket, and green pants. He had set out on the Pacific Crest Trail from Anza, California on February 12, 2015. On February 16th, he called his friend and roommate, Min Kim, to schedule a supply pickup near Warner Springs at the Buddhist Temple in northern San Diego County on Chickawa Valley Road. Chris never arrived at the agreed-upon location, and his friend did not report him missing until February 24th, when he was expected to reach his final destination. On February 24th, hikers found a sleeping bag, sleeping pad, and backpack that appeared to belong to Chris, as well as his ID, approximately 13 miles off Highway 79, north of Warner Springs. The San Diego Sheriff's Office called off the search for Chris on March 3, 2015, due to weather conditions. He had been missing for 2 weeks at that time. It's important to note that this is not the type of terrain that could easily hide a body. There are mountain lions in the area, but they are shy animals that generally avoid human contact. This case is quite puzzling. Chris wouldn't have gone far from his gear, and given the extensive search efforts, it's highly unlikely that he fell over or became incapacitated without being found. There's no evidence of crime against hikers being an issue in this part of the Pacific Crest Trail, and the distance from the border makes it improbable that he might have run across drug smugglers. One theory, as posted on an online forum, Find Chris Sylvia Missing Hiker Group, suggests that Chris might have gotten off the trail near Tool Springs and stayed at the Anza RV park for a couple of days. He could have met up with a camp host named Earl, who was known for being friendly towards hikers, and might have given Chris a ride to the Chickawa Valley Road to continue his hike. Unfortunately, Earl has since passed away, so this theory remains unconfirmed. Chris's mother, Nancy Sylvia, believes that foul play could be involved in her son's disappearance. All 5 of her children are experienced hikers, and she finds it highly unusual that Chris will go hiking alone and leave his gear behind. Min Kim, Chris's roommate, said all we can really do is hope he's okay and try to remember as many positive moments as we can with him. Despite the years that have passed, Chris's loved ones still search for answers and hope to someday learn the truth behind his disappearance. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Chris Stevens Sylvia, please contact the San Diego Sheriff's Department at 858-565-5200. Your help could provide much-needed closure for Chris's family and friends, who continue to hold on to hope that they will find out what happened to him. As we reflect on the puzzling nature of Chris's case, it's crucial to remember the importance of staying safe and prepared while embarking on outdoor adventures. Even experienced hikers like Chris can encounter unexpected situations, and it's vital to have a plan in place for communication, supplies, and emergencies. The mysterious disappearance of Chris Sylvia remains an unsolved case, leaving many unanswered questions. Theories have been proposed, but no concrete evidence has emerged to explain what happened to Chris on that fateful hike. His loved ones are left with memories and an unwavering determination to uncover the truth. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps us continue to investigate and share the stories of missing persons. Until next time, stay safe on the trails and never stop searching for the truth.